Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host, Definition. This is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between not seeing the show and seeing it. It's the channel where we explain it so you don't have to. This is the Twilight Zone. The show has just dropped its 7th episode, and Not All Men has a lot to unpack from it. This is obviously the most heavily steeped in social commentary in not only this season's lineup, but also probably the show's history. Throughout this video, I'll be breaking down everything that you need to know about the episode and its ending, as well as what I took from it. I feel like I have to add a disclaimer to this one that I am a white man, so yeah, you may want to take my opinion on this episode with a pinch of salt, but I'm kind of interested in what other people think about this, as I can see it rubbing a lot of people the wrong way, especially with how the show has been so far. Anyway, this is full spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it yet, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. With that out of the way, huge thank you for clicking this video. Now let's dive into my ending explained breakdown of Not All Men. The episode opens with Annie being asked out by her supervisor, who won't take no for an answer. Annie is eager to please everyone at her new job, and he insists that she goes out with him. Whilst initially she turns him down, she eventually agrees to go on a date with him, and if that wasn't pretty heavy-handed, wait till you get into the rest of the episode. What this episode depicts is a world where men constantly hit on women and harass them. Depending on what life experience you have, this is either something you've seen before or have heard through numerous news reports on sexual harassment, and so on. After a strange meteor shower in the area, all of the men in the town begin acting aggressively towards women, and this carries over to Annie's date, who, though initially receptive to her co-worker's advances, decides to turn him down. He starts almost forcing himself upon her, and after she rejects him and things heat up, with him vandalizing his own apartment, her life becomes awkward at work, and the bruises caused by the event stay with her longer than would be deemed normal. This is obviously a metaphor for how advances like this can stay with women for long periods of time, and that men's actions have everlasting effects. Annie becomes frightened of men around her, and it becomes transparent that the actions of Dylan, her supervisor, have had a deep effect on her. Whilst I don't really have a problem with this stance on sexual harassment and so on, it's very clear that the episode has an agenda against all men, with everyone in the episode becoming demonized at one point. Even characters like Martha and Mike, who on the surface seem to have the perfect marriage, still fall judgment to Peele's viewpoint, with Mike boasting that he's woke and almost patting himself on the back stating there's still some good guys out there. He eventually too becomes violent, and this showcases that deep down all men have the potential for this. The son even tries to flirt with Annie, and too tries to come off like a good guy to her. It's difficult for me to not roll my eyes as to how heavy-handed some of the messages in this episode are, and I think the main problem I have with this iteration of the show is that it deals purely in blanket statements. Everything seems to be very black and white, and while symbolically that is the sign of the show, that doesn't mean that it has to transfer into the episodes. There is just no balance for me, and both men and women are victims of sexual harassment, so rather than tackling the issue as a personality trait that can be corrected, it pitches the idea that men are inherently like this, which is just plain wrong. Whilst Martha's son does himself become a victim to harassment, he also nearly transforms into an aggressor, which again wraps the piece in a one-sided viewpoint. Anyway, at a dinner party, Annie feels pressured by her boss into working with Dylan some more, and she confesses to her friend Martha about the date. Martha rebuts this with, "I've been on millions of bad dates, just like everybody, right?" To me, this showcases that Peele's view of society is that we do not even punish forceful behaviours because it is deemed acceptable and normal. This just isn't the case anymore, with many allegations leading to public shaming. Perhaps if this episode had been released 10 years ago, it would have felt more relevant, but in today's society it feels very behind the times. Anyway, after the dinner party, we learn that all of the men within the town are acting out their darkest desires. This of course puts the females in the firing line, and Annie and Martha have to fight to survive in the new social climate, which can be viewed as a metaphor for society as a whole. Now, I do have female friends that have been harassed by men, however I think it is dangerous to completely wash all males as violent murderers deep down, and just, yeah. I understand it's difficult to discuss myself as a man, as there will be hundreds of counter arguments, but I'm sure most will agree that this isn't the case. Not all men are violent, not all police are racists, not all Twilight Zone episodes are good. Anyway, Annie eventually diagnoses that it is the meteorite that is causing the problem with the men, and that there has to be another explanation to this entire thing. However, this turns out to be wrong, and it's revealed that the meteor hasn't actually been doing anything and men are just being men. To me, this is just ridiculous, and if this was the case, then why has it taken society so long to devolve into a place where murder is commonplace? Eventually, Cole, Martha's son, shows that men are able to control themselves, and he fights back, but this still signifies to me that men are the problem rather than the society that governs them. The big twist reveal that men are just acting of their own free will in order to be violent, and that the cure will always be inside them, is very on the nose. Like, fair enough if you like this episode, but it's about as subtle as a Slipknot concert. In the end, Annie stands up for herself when being berated by a man, and this signifies the Me Too movement finally coming forward. Overall, in my opinion, the episode is far too heavy-handed to enjoy. Like, I get it, men are bad, but this is just another example of the Twilight Zone taking a cool idea and handling it badly. There are ways to do this with subtlety and grace, but unfortunately this falls flat due to the lack of subtext and a twist that I just cannot agree with. As I've said numerous times, I am a white man, so I will always have bias towards things like this, and I of course would love to see a balanced viewpoint on my videos. If you agree or disagree with me, I'd love to hear it, and I'm always open to people telling me I'm wrong, or am I just saying that because I'm pretending to be a good guy? Make your own mind up, comment below and let me know, and if you enjoyed this video then please like it and make sure you check out my breakdown of the entire season so far, which will be linked in a playlist at the end. This is a channel for people who are never missing television, so if that's the kind of thing you like, you need to subscribe to Definition. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this, you've been the best and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.